Last year I went to Japan, so this year I decided to stay for 3 weeks. It was me, my friend Kogan, and my girlfriend. So I met up with my friend Kogan. We haven't seen each other in a while, so we went out for a couple of drinks, caught up, and the next morning was walk all the way to Yodobashi from Asakusa to Ueno. The reason being is I had to pick up a wide lens, 16-28 by Sigma, and it was significantly cheaper in Japan, so that was my first mission when we got to Japan. So picking up this Sigma 16-28mm lens, contemporary 4L mount. I just want to say for anyone that's doing content creation, this lens really is a go-to. Compared to the 20-70mm Sigma art lens, it's a super versatile lens. I'm using it right now for this shot. It's a heavy lens, but the images come out super sharp and everything is super great. But sometimes creating content, that 24mm isn't wide enough. So this lens in the States is around $900, but when I picked it up in Yodobashi, it was around $780, brand new, no tax, so I didn't even have to pay that extra cost either. There are a couple of lenses in Japan that are more worth it for that price range, especially the Sigma lens. It is really hard to find. Kogan was also looking for a specific Sigma 85mm lens. Only issue is that they only had an L mount, super popular lens, but we literally visited all of the Yodobashi's, Lemon Camera, and a couple other camera stores just to see if they have it, and none of them had the Sony 85mm E-mount lens for a Sigma. So that was a crazy mission that we had, but it was one of the highlights. So again, this is an awesome lens. It does feel a little bit plasticky, lightweight, not as high quality as the Art series, but it is definitely still worth it. I do have this paired with the Freewell magnetic variable ND filters most of the time. So I had a 72-82mm step-up ring, and then I would attach it to this magnetic variable ND filter. Attaches on just like that. I like to keep the screws on the side, so I keep it like that. This came very handy for the rest of the trip. I use this for practically everything from pictures to the B-roll that we're watching right now. Another cool thing about this lens is that it is an internal zoom. So right now I'm at 28, going down to 16, and it is not coming out of the casing just to make that zoom. That in itself made everything more efficient because there was not really any shift in weight, and also it is a light lens. So this leads on to day 2. The biggest thing we did was visit Nintendo. Now I didn't get much footage of Nintendo because I was pretty overwhelmed from how busy and packed it was. I wanted to grab some merch, some cool little trinkets, and one of the trinkets that I was aiming for this year was the controller keychains that a lot of people have been hyping about. It's kind of like these small controllers with a keychain attached to them of only the buttons. It's a really cool fidget toy. And so I didn't get all my attempts on camera, but I did get my first couple of attempts, and I did not get what I wanted. I got this Famicom controller, Super Nintendo version, the GameCube C-Stick. So yeah, it is a really cool keychain. But what I was really aiming for was this one. I grew up with the Super Nintendo. These buttons were really nostalgic to me. I did play a lot of Street Fighter when I was a kid with this. So I was really aiming for this one. And I got it on my 4th attempt. Each attempt is about 600 yen. So that's about $5, $4. It took me 16 bucks around to actually get this. I think it's worth it. You can only get it in the Nintendo store, specifically in Shibuya, for those gacha. There was a really long line at first, but it chilled down and everyone was just trying to pick up other stuff. We did go up a little bit higher, check out the rooftop. The views were awesome. And of course we were taking a break, so I just played on the Anbernic RG Cube. So after Nintendo Store, we had a lot of time left actually. So what we did was we went climbing. We had our shoes with us. We went back to B Pump Tokyo. B Pump was where I went climbing last year, and I could barely climb like a V1 or V2. This year, I am proud to say that I have gotten into somewhat better shape, and I was able to climb more V3, V4s. I was projecting a couple V4s, but after a long day of just walking around, trying to clear our missions, it was really hard to gather the strength again to actually finish some of my climbs, but it was still well worth it. I already did the registration fee from last year, so this year my visit was only around 1,980 yen, which equates to around 13 bucks. It wasn't bad. If we decided to do the full day, it would be 2,200 yen, and 2,200 yen was only 14 bucks, 15 bucks. So definitely worth it compared to the day passes priced in the States, ranging from around 20 to 30 bucks. Super worth it. And I definitely didn't waste it compared to last year, since I was able to climb way more. So I didn't get a lot of footage of the climbing, but here are a couple of dynos I was pretty proud of doing. These were V3s.
Nice.
And then there was this V4 that I was trying to finish, but again, I was too pumped out and too tired to actually finish it. I was literally missing one more move, but I'd say we were climbing pretty decently, so wasn't too bad. So the next time I try coming back to B Pump Tokyo, I hope I'm strong enough to try the even harder problems. I'll be training for that next. And what else did I try with Kogan? We had awesome hamburgers. This hamburg restaurant had a kind of like dine and go. So you would pay first, you would experience their food. After you finish, you should get up and go just so the next customer can sit down and eat. I eat pretty fast, so that's why I'm sitting out here, and Kogan's still in there. All right, so at this time, Kogan had to go back a little bit earlier. It was around the 4th day. I helped him pack his stuff and we went to the train. And then I was left on my own for 4 to 5 hours, just hanging out, waiting for my girlfriend to come at night. So I spent most of the time going back to Akihabara. Not only is this like a huge nerd nest of anime, games, and gachapons and crane games, the architecture there was very interesting as well. And after admiring Akihabara for a couple of hours, went back to the hotel and met up with my girlfriend. Now, of course, the dinner that we had was sushi. Sushi at Kura. And this leads on to the next day. I did get my international driver's license because we did have plans on me renting out a car and driving to Mount Fuji. I managed to get through. It wasn't too bad. It was just such a surreal experience, especially since I'd never driven on the left side before. And of course, driving to Mount Fuji, we did have to visit the famous Lawson with Mount Fuji in the back. We did do some research before, and we did hear that the Lawson with the Mount Fuji in the back, there were a lot of scaffoldings and a lot of different constructions to block people from actually being able to take photos. But when we drove there, it was pretty empty. So we were able to take those photos. Unfortunately, it was really cloudy, so it did block a lot of Mount Fuji. So that was a little bit disappointing. The next stop that we had was my very first Hard Off experience. Hard Off is a franchise that has a lot of like thrift store shopping. It has a bunch of different old consoles, different old instruments, vintage stuff, but they sell it at a pretty good price. This being my first Hard Off experience, I never really knew what to expect. But when we got there, it was a pretty big store. The camera selection they have was pretty cool. I did want to pick up a couple of things, but I didn't want to be spending so much. So I was really picky on what to spend it on. I did end up picking up 2 NDS games. It's to help me learn kanji, essentially. These games are Japanese language learning games. So it teaches you how to write kanji, and it just helps you memorize a lot of different kanji characters. And this one's more of an RPG way of learning kanji, so that's pretty cool. And they weren't that expensive. I believe they were about like 200 yen and stuff. It's pretty cool because they do come with like the game and the game manual. I did check out a lot of the handhelds, but they were labeled as junk, and I didn't really want to risk it. I did try Google translating some of it, but to me, I don't think I could fix it. And the prices, I think they're more expensive than before. I did see a lot of people posting their experience shopping at hard off franchises where the prices were cheaper. So yeah, I didn't really end up getting anything much except 2 games. The next day, we went and experienced the other TeamLabs. Last year, we experienced TeamLabs Planets. Super cool experience, very well worth it. This year, we wanted to try something a little bit different, so we tried the other TeamLabs, which was TeamLabs Borderless. The experience there was very different compared to TeamLabs Planets, this being a complete light projection immersed experience where we're basically surrounded by different light projections. It was such a cool experience. My favorite one would be this music light projection series. I'm pretty sure this video doesn't do it justice, but there was so many cool lights just pointing, and when the light intersects with each other, there was these cool shapes. The atmosphere that they have going along with these lights is just unreal. Before our next gaming experience, we did visit the Studio Ghibli Museum. There was home structures in there. Unfortunately, we couldn't take any videos inside, but I did take a couple of videos of the outside. Also from the Studio Ghibli Museum, again, can't really show you what's inside, but we did pick up some pins. So these are the pins I picked. I don't know what this one's from. We also picked up a couple of posters. I did also pick up a book on one of the Studio Ghibli films. This one is on Ponyo. So the whole book is in Japanese, but it's a manga of the full Ponyo movie. Isn't that cool? So being an experience a day was what we had scheduled. Our next one was the Kewpie Museum. So on the way to the Kewpie Museum, we first decided to stop at this temple where there were a bunch of lucky cat statues. This is known as like the cat temple. And of course we had to get ourselves our own lucky cat. Mine is sitting right there. So the story behind this lucky cat is that you're to make a wish, you can get them, and when that wish comes true, you would bring this back to the temple and you would place it along with all these other lucky cats. I thought it was a really cool lore, and I guess I'd give it a try. So my girlfriend has one and I have one. And of course, we've arrived at the Kewpie Museum. To this day, it is my girlfriend's favorite museum still. Yes, now the Kewpie Museum are introducing more English presentation tour guides. It was actually a really cool experience. You get to know what 3 ingredients in Kewpie is, how it's made, how it's produced, how they're able to keep a long shelf life. They had us try a couple of different recipes using Kewpie, which was awesome. And did you guys know the baby on the Kewpie bottle is not actually a human baby? It is a fairy. That's a cool fact. So, still going along with the one experience a day, TeamLabs Borderless to Studio Ghibli to the Kewpie Museum, and now DisneySea. So the DisneySea pass was around 6,500 yen per adult, which equates to around $43.94. It was pretty worth it. $43 for DisneySea, the amusement park. And we also had access to the other portion of the park, which you had to sketch out your time for. As soon as we got there, we got a ticket to one of the rides for Tangled. Because of that, we were able to access that side of the park, which was really cool. The food was actually pretty cheap compared to the food at amusement parks in the States. They're like around $12 to $15 at most. My favorite snack was around like 250 yen, which is around $2 or less. It was probably around like $1. It was a sea salt clamshell ice cream. It was so good. So the reason I was looking for the sea salt ice cream was because I was looking for the Kingdom Hearts sea salt ice cream. They don't have it anymore. Apparently, it used to be at a cafe that Tetsuya Nomura frequently visited, and he said it was like his favorite cafe. But they don't do that anymore, so I had to settle for the sea salt clamshell ice creams. So DisneySea had a couple of cool rides. One of the cooler rides that we went to was Journey to the Center of the Earth. That was a super cool roller coaster, but it ended just way too fast. I feel like some of the rides in Japan felt like it was a little bit quicker. It might be the same, I don't know why. It just felt like it was a lot faster in Japan. We stayed for like the Fantasia show at the end, and that was pretty fire. And then after the show, we went back and we called it a night. Now, this was our last full day in Japan, and we went to Kamakura. Last year when we went to Japan, we never went to Kamakura or heard of it. There were a lot of famous anime scenes, like from Slam Dunk, which was in reference to a specific spot in Kamakura, which I thought was really cool, but I never really watched Slam Dunk, so I wasn't sure. My favorite was running into this new retro gaming store. Yep, I was back on the gaming hunt. They were called Retro Game B-Dash. It's this small retro game shop in Kamakura. Super nice store owner. They were open for like 2 months. When we walked into Retro Game B-Dash, the song I heard playing on the speakers was Dearly Beloved. They were also playing a bunch of the Kingdom Hearts main battle theme songs too. The pricing for the games were pretty good. I actually ended up picking up Tetris for 900 yen. So that's about $7, $6 to $7 for this Tetris game, which now I can finally play on the DMG Game Boy. And of course I had to pick up this version of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories. 750 yen, so it was about $5 around there. Those were kind of like what I picked up. I did check out the more premium collection that they have. It was super cool seeing those. I really wanted them, just I didn't have the budget for it, so I didn't really pick any of those out. I did check out the consoles too. They were in perfect condition from what I could tell. Just again, the prices were pretty fair. I just didn't have the budget at that time to actually pick out any of the consoles. There was the Game Boy Advance, that all white one. I really wanted to grab that one. There was also the Game Boy Advance SP that was in the darker gray variation. I don't have mine anymore, so I did want to recollect those, but again, didn't have the budget for it. The shop owners from Retro Game B-Dash were super nice, and I got a picture with them. Some other cool things was visiting the Buddha temple, and the street food in Kamakura was just so good. This is right when you get off of Kamakura Station. This is before taking the train going to other places. We did pick up some Studio Ghibli blind boxes as well. Here's the one that came out of mine. I think it's a pretty cool Totoro. What do you think? Some other things I tried picking up was these one-piece keychains, which did a collaboration with Taiko Drumming. I wanted the special Gear 5 Luffy, so I spent around $30. These were 300 yen for one keychain, which was around $2, but I ended up having a bunch of duplicates. Here are all of them by themselves. This is Blackbeard, this is Buggy, Shanks, Jinbei, Brooks, Frankie, Robin, Chopper, Sanji, Usopp, Nami, Luffy. I didn't get Zoro, but I found someone that does have Zoro, so I'm doing a trade so I can have a complete set. And of course, the one I've been trying to get, Year 5 Luffy. Honestly, if I got this one first, I would not have tried to get the rest, but I ended up getting the rest first, and then I got this. And since that was our last time in Japan, we ended it with some good old tonkatsu. It's a really good place. I highly recommend if you can find it. It says tonkatsu, has the pig icon. Achi something. The front has a bunch of different tonkatsu kind of like display where they show a bunch of different types of sets they have. Super recommend if you can ever find it. And comment down below to let me know what it's called if you guys know what it is. That pretty much concludes my trip to Japan. Gaming scene wise, I only experienced one hard off, and experience one retro game store. Both awesome experiences. Kind of wish now that I went to more places instead of like Akihabara, because everything I saw on Akihabara I've seen on other channels when I was doing my research on where to go. Yeah, maybe if I do come back next year, definitely gonna try searching other places for better prices. And as always, another great way for you guys to help support this channel is to give this video a thumbs up, share it with a friend that's visiting Japan, and subscribe. Thanks guys, peace.